All right, hi everybody. Welcome to the advanced painting slash drawing in Adobe Photoshop. Um, you have three files that I have you for download. I have this box file for you to download here, and I will talk more about this little furry friend a little bit later. I've got a skull PNG with transparency for you to download, and then this flower image as well. So make sure you have those downloaded before we get started. You are, of course, going to need your Wacom tablet as we go into advanced value and texture to create dimensionality, which creates realism within your drawings, right? Because it's all about, if you want something to be rendered in a realistic manner, and you don't want it to seem flat, you have to use value and texture. Those are the two magic things. Now, just a reminder that in your tablet here, I don't know, some of you probably work on multiple monitors, some of you maybe not. If you work on multiple monitors, I just want you to know that you can make adjustments in which monitor your tablet is showing up on. Let's see. So like, for example, I have multiple monitors. That's not the one that I wanted. I have multiple monitors. So what I can do is I can select that my tablet covers all the monitors. But for drawing, that's really going to be weird for me because I'm going to be doing my drawing on this left monitor here. So I'm just going to choose the screen area to be monitor 1, and then my tablet is just going to focus on that particular screen. So if you're working with multiple screens, I highly suggest making sure that. Otherwise, you're only using a little bit of your tablet. So I'm going to have you go ahead and launch Photoshop. Oh, that's my oldest kid's second grade photo just came back. Sorry. I just opened it recently to resize it, and it was a really good photo. They did a good job. All right, so we're going to create new. I'm going to have you have this be like, I don't know, like 20 inches tall, maybe by 15 inches, a nice big canvas. Go ahead and have your resolution at 300. RGB, 8-bit, and white is all fine for the rest of that. So go ahead and create that. So yeah, we're going to do a couple of things with brushes at first, and then I'm really going to spend a lot of time talking about value and texture, because those are the things that you need to practice in order to make your stuff look three-dimensional. And you know, I can tell you all the different tips and tricks, but really it just comes down to practice. So yeah, we'll talk about all those things. So a couple of panels that you're already familiar with from our intro to painting is the brush panel here, and then the brush settings. If your brush settings isn't showing up, it's just right here, brushes, brush settings. So you know, you have all your default brushes. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger here. You've got your generals, which quite honestly, like for me, most of the time I'm just using the hard round pressure one for most of the time. But you get all these other bonus brushes, but you know, there's the default brushes that come in Photoshop, and then there's the millions other brushes. You can change the size of how you see your brushes just right here. So you have all your default brushes like I mentioned, but there are tons and tons for download. So let me just pull up, let's see, I have a bunch of tabs to go over. Let's see if either one of these has my brush search. So this is Brusheezy. And there's a ton of these types of sites where you can download all different types of brushes. Now, some of the Photoshop brushes are more drawing type brushes. And some of them are more like stamps. So they call themselves brushes, but they're really just like stamps. One site that you'll have linked in Canvas that I highly suggest, who this person is like the king of Photoshop brushes, is Kyle T. Webster. So let's go to Kyle Webster brushes free download. And you're really going to find just about all you can imagine here. I have several of these downloaded. So here's the fall 2021 brushes. And there's so many. So let's do, oh my gosh, there's just so many fun ones. So there's a ton out there, but for brushes that you're actually going to be painting and drawing with, I would stick to Kyle Webster just because the other ones, they're cool too, but they tend to be more like stamps. And I'm going to show you how to make a stamp here in just a little bit. I love these runny inkers, by the way. These are great. For this particular tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and choose, well, I'm going to choose the letterers brushes. So it comes in this letterers ABR type file. And so all I need to do in Photoshop when I download that is just come on in. And if I go to my flyout menu here and get more brushes, it used to be, let's see. It used to say load brushes. Oh, no. Let me see here. Import brushes. That must be it. Let's go to desktop. Now, if you're going to be downloading a bunch of brushes and you just want to have access to them all the time, you know, make a folder. Make your folder on your hard drive for this. So here's my letterers brushes. And I've got all kinds of cool stuff in here. So if I come over here and go ahead and pick, I don't know, what's a really fun one? Like this is pretty recognizable. I come in here and I pick that. And now I've got like this zipper brush thing going on, which is super cool. So I highly recommend downloading some of the Kyle Webster brushes to play around with, which are best for lettering. The other thing that you can do is if we go ahead and take, let me minimize this. We can create our own brush. So there's a couple different ways here. Let me show you a couple different ways to do that. So the first thing that you could do is go ahead and grab your brush, and then let's just make something crazy. So let's say with that brush, I'm going to make this particular pattern. Okay, so if I go ahead and go to, I select the layer here. I'm going to go to select focus area because I want to select this. I'm going to hit OK. It's the only thing on my canvas right now, so it should be pretty easy selection. And then I go to edit and I say define brush preset. So here's my brush right here, sampled brush. I don't know, I guess I'll just call this blah. I can always delete it later. Blah. Okay, blah. So now blah is down here. Now when it actually brushes and paints, here, let's go ahead and deselect. So let me see. In this layer, I'm gonna hit Command D to deselect. So then when I go into paint with the brush, you know, it's gonna behave as a brush. That's why some brushes are a little bit better as stamps. It just kind of depends on what you're doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna Command Z all that. So that's how you can create a brush out of, you know, whatever sort of image you make on the canvas. You can also, so I'm just gonna erase all that. You can also use vector files and ping files out from the world. So if we bring the skull ping in, And your brushes can't be bigger than 2500 by 2500. And I actually don't know how many pixels this document is. I have no idea. But you can make a brush just out of any file with transparency, really. So, the part with pixels is going to be part of the brush. Now, this isn't going to work very well as a brush that you draw things with, right? It doesn't really work that way with things that are recognizable, but these can be really nice to have depending on what it is that you're doing. So I'll just show you how to do it, and you can decide if you ever want to use one of these images to make a brush. So I'm going to go ahead and go select focus area again and hit OK. This type of selection process usually does it pretty good of just selecting, especially if it's the only thing on the canvas. So then I'm going to go to define brush preset. Of course, I'm going to call this skull. I'm going to hit OK. Now I've got skull down here. It looks a lot like blah because that's how it looks when it's painted with. Now I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. And if I go over here and grab my brush, I'm going to pick a different color here. So maybe like a nice blue. And I choose my paintbrush. And I've got my skull brush selected. I'm going to create a new layer so I can paint. So here's my skull brush. You can see I can shrink it, make it bigger with my bracket tools. And there I go. I've got basically a stamp. So that is, that's a good way to create a stamp, as a brush or whatever. And you can do all the things. You can use it as an eraser, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go down here and just trash these two brushes because they don't really do anything for me. Well, I guess I could have kept the skull, but, and then I'm going to go ahead and just delete the skull. And I'm going to erase this out of layer 1. Look, I erased the skull with the skull brush. My goodness. Okay. So the very basis of anything that has 3 dimensions on a screen, like I said, is texture and value. So let me just bring this back up again. So I'm going to go into my brushes here, and I'm going to pick something that's a little bit textured, but just looks more like a regular pencil. Yeah, okay, so there it is selected, and I can go in and I can change the shape dynamics. There's a lot you can do here, but as a beginner, I would shy away from this just for now, because you're going to be more concerned with the ability to draw and make things dimensional in here. So